So the coverage of today's video, imposter syndrome in tech as a software developer. Tough topic. Now this is a very important topic, and especially as a self-taught developer, it had a huge impact on my mental health. It not only impacts your mental health, but it also creeps into your work, your quality of work, your enjoyment, your family. Imposter syndrome, especially as a self-taught developer, can really take you down. Imposter syndrome can be many things to many people, but for most of us it's the feeling of being a fraud, the feeling of not belonging, and it's most often a psychological factor in why we don't pursue or push ourselves. Now what's quite scary about this, for those who do suffer from imposter syndrome, you do actually have a trail of success and accomplishments you've achieved, but to you they feel more like luck or timing or somebody else's contribution and not your own hard work. You almost feel incompetent, like you don't have the skill or a lack of talent to be where you are, and it's all been down to those other factors, which makes you feel that you're a fraud or a cheat, or that you don't belong to be exactly where you are. Now, not only can I relate to this, but I've also taken the steps to beat it. And over this video, I'm going to talk about how it affected me, the impact it had on my life, and the steps I took to beat it, and how you can implement them in your life to beat it too. Now, with the prevalence of self-taught developers, with how much more people are coming through the self-taught route, teaching themselves how to code and not coming into tech with a degree, imposter syndrome is becoming more and more rife. That feeling of not belonging because you don't have a piece of paper with a certification on it from a university. It seems that majority of people in tech who suffer from imposter syndrome do so because of this, because of being self-taught and not having the confidence to know that you do have the skills to stand there among your peers. I came through a career change into tech. I was around 30 at the time. So as you can imagine, imposter syndrome hit me really hard. I was with people who are exceptionally clever. People had been coding since they were 15. People with degrees from great universities who understood technical concepts straight off the bat. I was none of these things, absolutely none. So when I was involved with conversations, I'd often keep quiet, even though I had great ideas. When people were speaking who I felt had higher qualifications or more education, I'd be quiet because I just felt, well, what do I know? I'd be in fear that I'd just be taken as stupid, or that what I said wouldn't contribute anything because what do I know? I don't have a degree, I don't have the experience. I wasn't great at algorithms. Did I really need them to be a front-end developer? The internet would have you believing so. These feelings and thoughts intruded into my personal life with my wife and kids. I went through a huge career change. I took a huge chance on myself. I second doubted myself all the time. Am I supposed to be here? Am I good enough to be a developer? Did I make a huge mistake investing that money and time into becoming a developer? Should I quit now before the damage is done? These are all questions that I went through my mind. I spoke to my wife about, who supported me all the way. Things which scared me because I'd taken a huge leap of faith on myself. These are quite common thought patterns for people who suffer with imposter syndrome. You've possibly felt them yourself or thought about them. If you can relate to those thought patterns, and you've noticed them similar in your own experiences, you need to stop. There are commonly three main reasons why I see people suffering with imposter syndrome in tech. The first one we've already touched upon, education. The main reason in tech why I've seen people suffer from imposter syndrome is lack of a formal education. A lot of us now come through alternative routes. We don't have a degree and we feel inferior to people who do, especially when we see so many requirements on job descriptions for them. The second big factor in imposter syndrome is comparing ourselves to others. We may start a company with exceptionally clever people, and those people may have a degree, and we relate that feeling to that of accomplishment of them to that education, whereas it could be the experience, or it could just be them as an individual. Point is we can't compare ourselves to others. Number three is the industry itself. Tech moves exceptionally quick, and it's very easy to feel like you're being left behind. Now it's very important to understand that it happens to a lot of people. The feeling of imposter syndrome is not just you. I felt very isolated with it. So I'm here to tell you that it's not just you. I've been through it, and many of the people who are watching this video have been through it too. And I can guarantee there's going to be a lot. So let's talk about those three things. The first one being education. Now, education is not prerequisite to anything, unless of course you wanted to be a doctor or a surgeon. Then please, obviously, go and get a degree and spend some time studying that subject. But time and time again now, we are understanding and we are valuing that not everybody educates or learns the same. And especially in software and tech, you don't need a degree to be a great developer. Now it is true that that degree may give you an advantage in terms of core fundamentals, but with the prevalence of online learning, with the amount of education that's available now at our fingertips, a degree doesn't mean anything anymore. You can be a great developer without a degree. I've met amazing developers who never went for a formal education. Some of the best developers I've ever worked with are self-taught developers. My mentor, a front-end engineer who's the most amazing developer I've ever worked with, never got a degree in computer science. The second thing, comparing yourself to others is a very detrimental behavioural pattern, and it's one thing that I had to overcome. As I mentioned, each company that I worked at, I worked with some exceptionally clever people. People who were younger than me, people who are older than me, people who are at the same age but were amazing developers. And quite often I think to myself, because I came into this industry late as a career changer, I have to do so much to keep up, to prove myself. And I'd always compare myself to somebody who'd been in the industry for 8-9 years. People I learn from now are younger than me, and I appreciate their value and input and experience. I don't compare myself to thinking, well, this person's only 22 and I'm 33. I should know more. It doesn't work like that in tech. We all only have the experience that we have based on the time that we put in. And experience grows as you grow, as your career grows. So you can't compare yourself to others. You can only compare yourself to where you were last year, last week, last month. And third and foremost, one of the most important things that I try to teach people who I mentor, tech moves incredibly quick. It's not about what you don't know, it's about what you're prepared to learn. In this industry, it's impossible for one person to know everything. It just doesn't work like that. But what's very, very important is that you are prepared to learn when the opportunity arises. If you're asked to take on a new technology, a new task, a new project, you have to dig in and get stuck in and learn new things. That's what separates you. That's what's going to make you bigger, better, and the most amazing developer. Don't worry about what you don't know, as long as you're prepared to learn. Now let's talk about some practical steps that I implemented to help me overcome imposter syndrome. Now we've already been over what it is, the mindset, and some of the main causes. Now let me teach you about how I beat it. Now when I say beat it, it's important to know imposter syndrome can hit at any point in your career, although it's more prevalent at the younger years. Although I'm stronger in my ability to overcome it when it peaks its head, it doesn't mean that it still doesn't affect me. But I have strategies that when it does, I know I can get past it relatively quicker than I used to. I'm going to start with this one step, this one understanding, or this one mindset change, which I've already touched on briefly, but this has been the biggest factor to how I've survived in the industry. Don't worry about what you don't know. In this industry, as I've said, nobody knows everything. It just does not happen. But especially in your younger years, you think that you work with these incredibly clever people, that you need to know everything, and that what you don't know is a detriment to you. But it's not. There's no way in this industry that everybody can know everything. What's very important is that you know that you don't know everything. And it's important to know, this is the important thing, not knowing everything is completely okay. It seems a bit crazy that you can come into the industry and have the understanding that I do not know anything, and that's okay. It's an affirmation almost. Just say it with me. I do not know everything, and that's okay. It's fine to not know everything. Where we shine and where we beat imposter syndrome is knowing that and accepting that we don't know everything. However, we will learn as we go along. As we gain experience, as we gain exposure, as we get further along in our careers, we will grow and we will learn. And we are always prepared to learn what we don't know. That's a growth mindset. I do not know everything, but I'm prepared to learn. That's okay. Number 2 is a big one, and what helps me overcome and beat imposter syndrome: realistic goals and celebrations. What I quite often tell people to do is set small goals, small achievable goals. You know, learning how to center a div, building your first website, maybe doing your first push in MR once you're getting your first job, having your first MR merged into a main branch, your first conversations, your first code review. These are all things, these are amazing things which you should sit back and say, I did that, I achieved that. It's such a small thing, but it makes such a huge difference to you and to your mindset. Write these down, write these small things down. My first PR got approved. I had my first merge request approved. I created my first branch. Huge things. You should be proud of them and you should celebrate, because the second part of that is the celebration. You should always take the time to feel good about those small things that you achieve, because they will make a difference in how your mindset evolves over time. So taking something so small, like having your first PR approved or building your first feature, it sounds small, but it's a huge accomplishment, and you should celebrate that achievement. You should gain that recognition within yourself. I did something. I am a developer. It's amazing. And that small shift in mindset is so huge. And the way it evolves throughout your career is that you start celebrating those small things regularly. The little things that you get wrong start to become very, very, very unrelative, and they start to sit at the back of your mind until they do not exist anymore. The great thing you'll find about writing those things down is that when you do start to suffer with imposter syndrome, you can look back at that small list or that big list of achievements that you've collected over time, and quite often it reminds you that I am supposed to be here, I can do this, I have achieved things. The third step I took was mentorship. Now this was difficult because I didn't find a mentor off the bat. Quite often it's quite difficult to get good feedback and honest feedback on how I can improve myself. But most recently I found a mentor who has took the time to encourage me and celebrate the small things in which I achieve. So now when I do something, I take a ticket and I build an implementation, I know that for a fact I'll gain the recognition from my mentor, because when they're looking at my MR or PR, they'd say, hey, you've come such a long way, look what you've done, you're taking on these hard, more difficult projects by yourself, you should really be proud of that. And that makes a huge difference. it made a huge difference to me. And that's why I quite often, when I mentor people, when I give advice on LinkedIn or on YouTube, I try to take the time to encourage the person and celebrate that small achievement that they've done first before any level of criticism comes through, just so that they know that what they've done, even though it might be wrong, it's a huge step in the right direction and they should feel good about it. So if you've got a mentor or a network or a support group, lean on them for this, because that feeling of support and enjoyment goes a long way, and that recognition, knowing that someone more senior has approved of what you've done or thinks you're going in the right way or supports you in your growth, can help you a lot mentally. The fourth step leans on the first step, where it's okay to understand that you know nothing as long as you're prepared to learn. And that's the fourth step, is the preparations to learn. It's noticing where your weak areas are and creating a path to get better at them, or creating step-by-step process of where you're going to improve. You know, maybe you want to be a front-end developer, so you're going to start very small with your HTML, CSS, and then you're going to make steps to go into JavaScript and implement JavaScript. Then you're going to start using React and you're going to implement those steps. These are all small career steps which you will build upon over time, and it's all a process of continual learning. And where you are at day 1 versus where you are at day 652, there will be such a huge difference that you will be amazed when you look back. I am. When I look back on what I could do 3 years ago to what I can do now and what I can achieve, I can take a ticket and break it down. I can build an end-to-end app or product or feature. I can use complex state. It's amazing. I can figure things out, and that makes me feel good. When imposter syndrome does come around again, that I know actually I've achieved a lot. I may struggle with something right now, even after 3 years of experience, but in 5 years of experience, I'm going to look back again and say that the things that I'm struggling with now were nothing. So it's very important to understand those steps of how to overcome imposter syndrome. Those are practical things that I've done which have helped me overcome it in tech, as a self-taught developer, as somebody who suffered with it mentally, and how it creeps into my own life, my personal life. It still does creep up, as I've mentioned, but with those tools and those steps, I know how quickly I can beat it. The most important thing, as I've mentioned before, is understanding that it's okay to not know. You do belong, and you will belong, and you will be someone who overcomes imposter syndrome as well. Now, if you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your experiences with it. No matter what your experience is, if it's slightly different to mine, if you had different steps to overcome it, it'd help other people watching this video, who are going to watch this video, who need that guidance and help. And as always, please like, subscribe and share, because there's a lot more content coming around this and aspects of being a developer.